Today, I'd like to discuss the issue of transparency. This issue is something that I believe is very important in evaluating the particular candidates who are running for the highest offices in our land. Today, we're talking about the issue of Kamala Harris's transparency. What was it? Did it fail? Was it something that we could point to? Was there anything in there that kind of stuck out as far as its ability to define her as a person? I believe it did. And I also believe that we're finding out a lot about Kamala Harris every time she speaks. Every time she talks about what is her position on something, she refers back to Joe Biden. Joe's position. Joe and I talked about it. Joe and I discussed it. Well, what's your position? Because what we have to understand when we look at this whole thing is that to vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. Joe Biden will not last one term. He's 78 years old. He'll be the oldest living president if he were to be elected. And that's amazing. I don't think that anything in his repertoire tells you that he's going to survive. In fact, everything points in the other direction, that he's not. So to vote for Joe Biden is to vote for Kamala Harris. That's why we have to analyze her character traits. So what are her character traits? What did she show us in the debate? She showed us that she's a politician. She showed us that she's snide in her remarks. She showed us that she's not concerned about most of the situations or topics that came up because she laughed her way through the whole debate. She stood there and sat there, I should say, and shook her head whenever things were not to her liking. But she has no comeback for certain things. So what was her position on Joe Biden? She said Joe Biden is a racist.
You have also been quite critical of Vice President Biden's policies on race, specifically on the issue of busing in the 1970s, having benefited from busing when you were a young child. Vice President Biden says that your current position on busing, you're opposed to federally mandated busing, that position is the same as his position. Is he right?
That is simply false. And let's be very clear about this. When Vice President Biden was in the United States Senate working with segregationists to oppose busing, which was the vehicle by which we would integrate America's public schools, had I been in the United States Senate at that time, I would have been completely on the other side of the aisle. And let's be clear about this. Had those segregationists their way, I would not be a member of the United States Senate, Cory Booker would not be a member of the United States Senate, and Barack Obama would not have been in a position to nominate him to the title he now holds. And so on that issue, we could not be more apart, which is that the Vice President has still failed to acknowledge that it was wrong to take the position that he took.
That's his running mate? That's someone who's going to second him? Or does she have her own agenda? And that agenda is, I'm running for Kamala Harris. She portrays herself as someone who's a person of color. We know she's a person of color. That's why Joe picked her. No, I'm waiting for her to tell us what her qualities that make her more qualified than a lot of the other candidates. Does she have leadership? Does she have honesty? Is she forthright? Is she credible? When you walked away from that TV set after the debate, did you say to yourself, I believe what she said? Or did you say to yourself, I can't believe what I heard? And that's what I walked away with. Incredible. So what are we looking at? We're looking at someone who said fracking is bad and who stood in front of 50 million people and said, no, we're not going to do away with fracking. Now, can you live in both worlds? So what I always look at when I see something like this is you're telling a lie when you talk in the Democratic primary, or you're lying to us today. Which day were you telling us the truth? Or which day were you lying to us? better yet. And why would they want to lie? Why would she want to lie? Because it's expedient. Because it gets her where she wants to go. This is a weakness of character, that you'll bend the truth in order to achieve some political end. And so how does she resolve that? By calling the critic a racist. She plays the race card. That means she has no comeback. That's the weakest, most ineffectual way to criticize a person. If you don't like what they say, just call them a racist. And that's the end of it. There's nothing more to talk about. So we heard her talk about a lot of things. We heard her laugh and giggle her way through this. Now, what do they want you to walk away with when you heard the Vice President of the United States speak? They want you to talk about the fly that landed on his head. Does that matter? Is that character? That's what we have to look at when we look at both of these candidates. Who had the most believable character in the debate? That was not Kamala Harris. She was very, very weak. She was not persuasive. She talked about herself in a way that didn't make any sense. She didn't talk about what she's going to do. She talked about what President Trump has not done. Now, that's who you're going to put into a future position. The first question out of your mouth is, so how are you going to make it better? We're going to shut the country down. We're going to make people wear masks. We're going to eliminate fossil fuel. And we're going to create 5 million jobs. That's what they think they're going to do. Or that's what they'd like you to believe they're going to do. They're going to create 5 million jobs. New jobs. The Trump administration created 11 million new jobs in 3 months. They're going to create 5 million new jobs, and that's it. How many jobs are we going to lose while we're creating these 5 million new jobs? Estimates? 20 million? 25 million? More people out of work. More turning to alcohol, drugs, depression, all that goes with that. All that goes with that. This unemployment situation that we're dealing with is not because of a weakness in some policy, economic policy. The country was doing great before the virus came from China, but the virus caused this. Now, how are you going to hold the President of the United States responsible for the creation of the disease? He didn't act quickly enough. Tell me, how many people's lives would have been saved? Please tell me that, science. They can't. Please tell me how many jobs would not have been lost. Please tell me that. They can't. Please tell me what your philosophy would have been if you would have left the borders open. How would you have stopped that? They can't. Please tell me how many people came infected who came over the border illegally and caused the pandemics to grow. They can't, and they won't, because if they do, they're going to lose their left base. In fact, I think they've already lost them because they said openly on television, we're not against fracking. And that is no for the left. They are totally against fracking. They are totally against fossil fuel. And they're totally against natural gas. Do you know that natural gas is being used to replace coal burning furnaces? It causes less harmful gas emission, less carbon dioxide in the air, and it's better. You can't do this in one step. This has to be done gradually. The United States is one of the lower contributors to the greenhouse gases. But they won't tell you that because it doesn't fit. They'd rather scare you in telling you the world's going to end in 12 years. Where did we hear that before? Al Gore said it. It was going to end in 10 years. Well, those 10 years went by and we're still all here. So they gave us another 12 years. It sounds like a Henny Youngman joke. I went to my doctor and I couldn't pay the bill. And he said, well, how much time do you need? He said, well, you're going to die in 6 months. He said, oh, he said, well, then I'll give you another 2 years. It's a joke. They make a joke out of this because they make a joke out of us. They think we're foolish. They're going to do away with the Electoral College. And guess what? Everybody in those states that they talk about, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, they don't matter anymore. Sorry. The only states that matter are California and New York. They don't even understand that we're not in a democracy. We're in a republic. She's a senator. She's elected for 6 years. The president's elected for 4 years, not 3 years and 6 months, 4 years. If one of the Supreme Court justices dies in that 4-year period, it's his right and probably an obligation to nominate somebody. That doesn't mean that the person's going to become a justice because he doesn't elect them or nominate them and confirm them as justices. He only puts their name in. Why is that weak? How is that weakness on the part of the president? What it is they're losing their playpen right now, which is the Supreme Court. They don't have the Supreme Court to pass laws when they can't get the voting public to agree with them. So they get the Supreme Court to do it. They're afraid of Roe v. Wade. Well, Roe v. Wade is judge-made law, and the Supreme Court passed it. It's very simple. You obey the law, whatever the law is. If the Supreme Court deems the law unconstitutional, then the law becomes unconstitutional. Has that happened frequently? No, it has not. It has not. Very seldom that the Supreme Court reverses itself. And it used to be that we said, okay, well, science advises people. They want to say, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to say that science will tell them what to do next. Where are these people from? What planet you think they grew up on? Science will tell you what's to happen next. Don't leave. The world is flat. You're going to sail off the edge. The sun circles around the earth. That was science at one time. Now, if everybody believed in that, we'd be in a pretty good pickle right now because we probably wouldn't be here. Nobody would have left Europe to come here because they just sailed right off the earth because the world was flat. That was science. That was the common belief. But we've evolved. Not perfectly, but we've evolved. But it's funny to think that science is going to tell Joe Biden or Kamala Harris what to do. It can tell them what's there. It can tell them the trends. It can tell them a lot of things. But ultimately, it's the voting public who decides what to do. They don't want to talk about this, but we all have inalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We have the liberty to decide. These are God-given things that God gave to us. The government doesn't give us those rights. We have them by virtue of who we are. And that brings me to the last part of this, and that is this intrinsic, institutional racism comment that they always make. They always go back to that's their talking point now. What that means is that there are laws, that the government passes laws that are racist. Well, if there are any laws that have been passed that are racist, certainly wasn't done by Donald Trump, and it certainly wasn't done by Mike Pence. So I wonder who of all four of these people passed laws that were racist. Who's the one who gave the eulogy at Robert Byrd's funeral? Joe Biden. Who's the one who used Robert Byrd as his mentor? Joe Biden. Who's the one that passed the law that forced many, many African American men to go to prison? Joe Biden. Now, we're supposed to believe that he's the people's man, that he comes as the savior. And he's not here to save anyone. They don't care about the American public. If they did, they wouldn't be talking about packing the Supreme Court. or they wouldn't be talking about trying to do away with the Electoral College, because the Electoral College is what protects the majority of citizens in the United States. It's the Electoral College that lets somebody from Idaho or from Kansas or from Iowa, to help pick the President of the United States. And that's something that they're going to fight to the end. That's because they don't want these people to be able to do that. They look down on these people. This is the ability of the left to lie and continue to lie. The more they lie, the bigger the lies get. And eventually, they believe, if you tell the same lie enough times, that eventually people will believe that it's true. And you don't have any pushback from the media, mainstream media. In fact, they cover for them. What we're looking at is someone in the person of Kamala Harris who should have been insulted by Joe Biden because he said that you can't own a 7-Eleven unless you have an Indian accent. Well, she's half Indian. Why wasn't she upset about that? And the reason she wasn't upset about that is because she doesn't identify herself as an Indian, because it's not politically expedient to be Indian. It's politically expedient to be black. And so she's passing herself off as someone who's black. Why say you're something you're not? Why say you're an Indian if you're not an Indian? That's what you have to look at, not the idea that they say that they're an Indian and that means something, but why are they saying it? It's not what they say, but why they say it. That's what you have to look at. You have to look at what people do. Not what they say, but what they do. And that's how you judge them. You look at Kamala Harris and you look at how she projects herself as somebody who's so concerned about the plight of the average citizen. But whenever she's confronted with her actions of depriving the average citizen of their rights, it somehow becomes funny. Like it's a joke. That is not character. That is lack of character. She has no character. She blows and goes in whatever way the wind blows her. The political winds blow her. She's for the death penalty. She's against the death penalty. She's for the death penalty. She's against the death penalty. It's not about that. It's about not having a position. She has no position. Her position is, what do I have to say to get elected? That's her position. Her position is, let me attack you and try to make you look bad, and then you won't look at me. Having said all that, I believe that it's not in anyone's interest to vote Joe Biden as President of the United States, because a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. Don't be fooled. Make the right choice. A vote for Joe Biden is actually a vote for Kamala Harris. Vote to re-elect President Donald Trump. For more information and videos like this, visit www.reelectdonaldtrump.net.